Because if you own the banks and you own the money and you own the Federal Reserve and you own the printing of the nonstop printing of money,
Stop.
then you just lend to
Stop.
everyone and you eventually own everyone, like BlackRock and Vanguard.
You're
all
actually,
Jewish.
you're unironically the degenerate here. Shut the fuck
Is
up.
what I just said wrong?
Shut the fuck up and answer my question. You need to concede a historical fact. Now, I know since you are a Holocaust denier, then maybe you are kind of afraid of history since it contradicts everything you believe, but for the sake of argument at least, you need to concede this fact, that the same arguments that you are levying right now were also the same arguments that Edison levied, which led to Jews starting Hollywood, which you are now fear-mongering about. Good Lord, this kid sounds so Jewish. Every Jew loves the spread of degeneracy. Wow, little Goyim, very anti-Semitic right off the bat. You have approximately literally 2 fucking seconds to get in my Discord and actually debate me about this subject, or you're going to be permanently banned. I await you joining the Discord. Again, if you don't, you're going to be permanently banned. You're not going to jump on here and say some super fucking stupid shit and then just like weasel away and pretend to be a little beta bitch. Join the Discord and talk to me now. You don't have a choice. Or you can just get sent off to the void, you know? I'll use my Jewish space laser and I'll just annihilate you right here and right now in front of everybody.
Are you Jewish, in fact, or no?
No.
I apologize for calling you Jewish then.
Okay. Well, why are you under the impression that quote-unquote Jewish people want to spread what you're considering degeneracy? What's up with that?
I've seen it in the Talmud, in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion.
You realize
they own the media, they own Hollywood.
Holy shit. You're not trolling me, are you?
No.
Okay.
I wish I was.
You realize the elders of Zion has been debunked back in like the 1920s.
Well, they call it, what's the word that they use to describe it?
The Jewish question?
No. Hold up. There's one word. Hold up.
Do you mean the JQ?
It is a... Yeah, sorry, I wasn't prepared for this. But there's a word that they describe it, and it's not them saying that it's false or that it's inaccurate. It just means that it's a copy of the original.
No, it was a plagiarized thing from a fictional story that was then taken and redistributed to spread anti-Semitism. Even motherfucking Hitler himself acknowledged the fact that it was a false document, that it was fake. For people watching, I know that, I mean, maybe you know this, I don't know, you're a Nazi, so you're obviously dumb as fuck, but for people watching, when the Elders of Zion initially came out, it claimed to be documents that basically depicted secret meetings taking place amongst Jews to essentially try and spread degeneracy. It was one of the first introductions of the Jewish question. And it was, literally debunked and proven to be a fraud, a false document. These meetings never took place, and it was also plagiarized, and this was all proven back in like the 1920s or something. It was ridiculously... it was debunked like so fucking long ago. So, yeah, I mean...
Well, if it's fake and fraudulent, then why is everything coming to fruition?
Why is everything coming what?
Coming to fruition. You can see the degeneracy spreading rampant around the entire world, except for places that don't do mass media and social media.
So, what do you mean mass media? Like, do you think that Jews are all just one big hive mind who all think exactly the same?
Well, they own pretty much everything.
What?
They're at the top positions, the CEOs of every media organization.
It would depend on how you're it would depend on how you're categorizing Jewish people. Like, do you mean ethnically Jewish or religious Jews?
Zionist Jews.
So, I mean, we could take this logic and also say that the majority of people holding power are white. Do you think that all white...
Jews don't see themselves as white.
I don't care. Do you think that white people all hold like some kind of hive mind where they all think alike and want to spread degeneracy?
I don't think white people want to spread degeneracy, but they're doing it anyways because they're under the woke mentality of giving up your background, your values, your beliefs, and just conforming to the Jewish degeneracy agenda of,
You can't just keep saying the
LGBT.
Jewish degeneracy. Like, you have to substantiate that, and you haven't substantiated that any of this has anything to do with Jews. I could just as easily say, no, it's not Jews, it's white people, or it's men. Men, they're all in on the big cabal to try and spread degeneracy. Like, if we want to do that, we could. The problem is what you're assuming is that Jews have a hive mind, that they all think alike. This isn't the case. There are plenty of conservative Jews, not to mention the fact...
I'm not talking about them. I said the Zionist Jews.
Not to mention the fact that the reason you see Jews in disproportionate positions of power is actually because of previous discrimination. Like, you realize that, right?
Well, we can have a debate on whatever you want, but I don't believe that there was really any discrimination against Jews, that they didn't either force upon the other party by their own actions, or it just didn't take place at all. So, for example, the Holocaust, there's no way that 6 million Jews were just outright
wait,
murdered.
Hold on, stop. You can get on your schizo rant here in a minute, but for now, let's just talk about this. The reason that Jews are in disproportionate positions of power when it comes to Hollywood is literally depicted historically. We have a historical understanding as to why that is. And the reason is simple. It's because when Thomas Edison first introduced the video camera, he was trying to patent it, and he was anti-Semitic himself, and he didn't want Jews using his technology. So Jews, a large portion of them at least, packed up and they went to the West Coast, where they were then able to start making films because it was a lot harder to sue people who were across the country at the time. Thomas Edison was anti-Semitic. He didn't want Jews using his film technology, so they went over to California and then were able to start producing films, and now this is why we see Hollywood today.
What year was this?
I'm not sure what year it was exactly, but...
Like after 1950 or before?
When was Thomas Edison around? I should probably know that. I'll go ahead and look it up.
Because that makes sense, because if it was after 1940s, 1930s, then he probably knew that the Jewish media owners in Berlin and Weimar, Germany were the first ones to start promoting degeneracy with same-sex in their musicals, in their theater, in their movies.
All right, you
pornography,
can't... While I'm looking
started.
something up, you're not able to start, going again on your schizo rants. You have to wait a minute here, okay? So...
Well, we can't have the downtime with no one talking.
Well, if you're going to talk, then, say something, I don't know, about something else. Don't go on another schizo rant, because I'm not done debunking the first set of really fucking stupid shit you've said. So, hold on. I'm trying to find the information here so that I can read you the historical thing. I read this before, so I know that it's somewhere around here. Hollywood arose from Thomas Edison's defeat. In the early 1900s, he and a group of other technological pioneers of recorded film attempted to monopolize the movie industry, using furious litigation and the literal hiring of thugs to batter down any rogue filmmakers unaffiliated with his group. Edison claimed that, quote, Jewish profiteers had stolen his patent and got rich off of it by promoting smut across America. You sound very similar to this person, dude. Wow. Does it ever make you feel? Does it ever make you feel a little embarrassed that I'm gonna go ahead and go on a limb here and guess that you probably don't believe in climate change, but it's a little bit ironic that you of all people you seem to be very interested in recycling really stupid fucking arguments that are now over 100 years old. Do you find it a little strange that you're literally still positing 100-year-old arguments?
This stuff takes a while. They don't just snap their fingers and then people start, conforming to their agenda. It takes time, dude.
However, one group of filmmakers decided that they'd had enough of Edison's meddling and simply moved as far away from him as possible, to California. The judges there didn't care as much about Edison and his silly little patents. Okay? So Edison tried to sue the founder of Universal Pictures 289 times, and he remained unsuccessful. And that is what led to Hollywood in California. So just let it be known that you being anti-Semitic is arguably
I'm not anti-Semitic
yes, you are. It's
because there's a lot
arguably
of Semitic people and races that are not Jewish.
that's really great. But when you are pushing forward these dipshit, unfounded ideas that Jews, quote unquote, are all a hive mind peddling
Zionist Jews.
degeneracy, then what you're doing is actually contributing largely to Jews being in a place of power. You're complaining about the problem while simultaneously the quote unquote problem, just so we're clear, it's actually not a problem. You are unironically contributing to it though. Like Thomas Edison had the exact same ideas as you did, and that then led to Jews going somewhere else and starting Hollywood. And now you're over here complaining that Jews control Hollywood. Do you see like the contradiction there?
But it's because you have to groom the children, so eventually when those kids
Are you
grow
just a
up,
troll?
they have...
Are you just a troll? I just want to make sure that I'm not getting trolled by like a retarded person that escaped a mental asylum.
No, dude, I'm not trolling.
Okay.
I wish I was trolling, like I said before, but you have to groom the children. That's why you hear all the drag queens and everybody when they stand in front of courts or school boards or whatever, they say we're grooming the next generation of children, because you can't just attack the old traditional white parents that are like 30, 40, 50 now. You have to go after the kids with the Disney and the Hollywood so that when they grow up and their boomer parents die, they just have their new traditions and their new degeneracy and everything. And
So
LGBTQ is just,
okay, let's
it's
talk about
normal now and stuff like that.
we can talk about what you're considering degeneracy, but first I'd like you to concede that your rhetoric when it comes to lying that Jews are somehow peddling degeneracy, those exact same arguments are what contributed to Jews being in disproportionate positions of power to begin with. I'd just like a concession from you on that. That the same argument you are making right now is also the argument that was used to literally put Jews in positions of power that you are now complaining about and alleging conspiracy.
Well, again, it's not all Jews, because I know
The
a couple
Zionist
Jewish
Jews,
people.
whatever the fuck you mean, are you going to concede
Yes,
that your
the
argument...
Zionist Jews
Are you going
that
to
believe in
concede that...
Jewish domination
Are you
worldwide.
going
That's
to
the Zionist
concede
Jews.
that your arguments are the same as the arguments made from Thomas Edison, and those arguments are what put Jews in positions of power that you are now getting mad about and alleging conspiracy? Are you going to concede that fact?
I don't know that my actions have anything to do with it,
Not
because
your
I
actions. Your argument is the
My
same argument that
arguments.
was used previously, historically, to now put Jews in disproportionate positions of power that you are now scared of and alleging conspiracy. Are you willing to concede that fact?
Most likely not, because I believe that their positions were already, they were already instated in those positions. Because I think it's just as simple as, if you own the banks, the Jews started the banks.
Why do you think Jews are in disproportionate positions of banks?
Because they started the money system. What was his name?
Why do they start a money system?
Meyer Amsel Bauer changed his name to Rothschild and then started banking systems, and he had 5 sons, and he sent them out to the different cities to tell them to start
the reason
different
why actually
branches.
is because the reason why actually is, again, dated way back hundreds of years throughout history, where certain religious beliefs prohibited others from lending money. So I believe it was Catholics and Christians at the time who were not able to lend money according to their religion, but Jews, they were not under the same religious restraints, so they had the ability to lend money. That is what led to Jews having positions of power in banks. But
Right,
again,
so they've had the power the entire time.
They had the power, though, via completely natural means. It was not like some conspiracy where all the Jews got together and were like, hey, haha, rubbing their hands together going, let's take over the banks. That's not what fucking happened. But that's aside the point. We're not moving on to the degeneracy crap until you concede that your argument about Jews trying to promote degeneracy is the same argument used by Edison, which led to Jews going to where we now consider Hollywood, which you are fear-mongering about and alleging conspiracy. I've said this 3 times, and we're not moving on until you concede that fact. That is a historical fact.
I'm not gonna concede to anything. We're just having a discussion.
No. We're
My
not having.
point
I
is
don't
that
have
they're in.
discussions with Nazi scumfucks. Okay, I have arguments with them so that I can
It's
tell them how
National
dumb they are.
Socialist. No
So
one said Nazi
I don't
except for
care what
Jews.
you call it. I need a concession for this fucking fact, or I'm just gonna hang up on your Nazi ass.
Dude, you can hang up if you want. It doesn't change the fact that they're in the position of power if they just move states
Why do
because
you
it's
think
harder to
they were
sue.
in positions of power?
Because if you own the banks and you own the money and you own the Federal Reserve and you own the printing of the nonstop printing of money,
Stop.
then you just lend to
Stop.
everyone and you eventually own everyone,
You're
like
being
BlackRock and Vanguard,
you're
all
actually
Jewish.
you're unironically the degenerate here. Shut the
But
fuck
is
up
what I
and
just said
shut the
wrong?
fuck up and answer my question. You need to concede a historical fact. Now, I know since you are a Holocaust denier, then maybe you are kind of afraid of history since it contradicts everything you believe. But for the sake of argument, at least, you need to concede this fact that the same arguments that you are levying right now were also the same arguments that Edison levied, which led to Jews starting Hollywood, which you are now fear-mongering about.
Dude,
Just
I
concede it,
don't
and so
know
we can move on
about
to the
the Edison
degeneracy.
story.
Okay, well,
You
based on what
informed
I'm...
me about Edison and being anti-Zionist Jews, and then they then own Hollywood. Yeah, like that's a fact.
So the fact that you didn't know this very basic, simple historical fact, yet are proudly touting anti-Semitic rhetoric, speaks volumes to your
It's
stupidity.
not
So,
anti-Semitic.
yes, it is.
It's
You need... All
anti-Jewish
right, I'm going to give you one
supremacy.
more chance, or I'm just going to hang up on you, because I would be more
Why
than
do you want
happy...
to hang up?
I don't want to hang up. I want to talk to you about what you are considering degeneracy. However, we cannot do that until you concede this fact. Why not, for the sake of argument, you can assume that what I'm telling you is accurate, and so you can concede the fact.
I mean, yeah, I said it was valid. They moved from, if what you're saying is true, they moved to California and started Hollywood, and they've been CEOs at prominent
So you're
positions.
conceding what I said, that it's the same arguments that you're making now were also the same arguments that led to Jews starting Hollywood, which you are now alleging conspiracy. Yes?
Sure, but I'm not
Thank you.
completely
That's
certain in
great.
the
That's
facts.
wonderful. That's all we needed here is a simple little concession so that we can
I
move
know
on
that's all
to
you
the
want
next
is to
part.
seem like you have one up on me in the discussion, but I really
Buddy,
don't care
I
about
could
that.
take a
So let's
shit.
move on to the
Wait. I
Holocaust
hope
now.
you know that I could take a shit and it would have the one up on you because you're a Nazi subhuman degenerate. So no matter what I say, even if I'm sitting here doing nothing but farting in the microphone, I would unironically have the upper hand on you. Okay? So now that that's out of the way, let's go over and talk about what you are considering the Jewish degeneracy. Go ahead. I'm going to take some notes.
What is degeneracy? That's your question?
Yes.
LGBTP, abortion, race mixing. What else?
Okay. We can
Selective migration.
We'll just do LGBT and race mixing.
Open borders.
And open borders. That's fine. Okay. Now we're going to go through these. Now, here's my question. If I can demonstrate to you that none of these things are quote-unquote degenerate, will you then acknowledge that nobody is actually pushing forward degeneracy because these things that you consider degeneracy are not, in fact, degenerate?
Well, how can you say that nobody's pushing degeneracy when that's all of what Hollywood is now? You know, you got to make the new Buzz Lightyear with the lesbians. You got to make everything with gays. You got to make the same-sex scenes.
Why are you
got to
considering...
make everything.
Okay, I
don't see white people in any commercials anymore. It's always the blacks or the minorities.
Okay.
Like
That's
Israel, Africa, all these people can have their own nation states, their own ethno-states, but the U.S. just has to be a cesspool of mongrels.
All right.
And the whites are going extinct.
I understand that you're offended. Let's just stop for a minute here, okay? You keep going on these like schizo rants. I'm not your therapist. So when we're talking about degeneracy, what are you considering degeneracy? Or excuse me, not what. We already have that on notes. Sorry. How are you coming to the conclusion that these things are in fact degeneracy? Like, what's your criteria for degeneracy?
Mental illness, I guess, and promoting that as if it's normal.
Let me just look up the definition. The state or property of being degenerate. Really? Hold on. The process of becoming. All right. Really? Define degeneracy society. A condition in which social structures and behavioral norms no longer function constructively. So that's what it's defining. So, degeneracy is mental illness.
Right. Like them telling you, the news telling you that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man, and that's how society works. That's just
okay. So
that's
your main criteria, at least for LGBT being degenerate, is because of the mental illness. So, are people with like depression or anxiety, are they too degenerate because they have mental illness problems?
No, the LGBTP mental illness, the gender dysphoria, the. So that's a tough subject because I don't know that it's been proven that it's in your brain or that it's
what about like veterans, because they commit suicide at way higher rates, they have PTSD, are they degenerate too?
I don't think veterans are degenerate. I think they made a choice to serve Israel and fight all the wars and die for Israel.
A lot of them didn't actually make that choice. They were drafted in or whatnot, but it would depend, I guess, on their age.
For them.
So okay, so it seems that you're categorizing degeneracy as mental illness only when it comes to LGBT individuals.
Well, usually if you have a mental illness, you go and you get help for said mental illness. But today, they're promoting it as if it's common and it's normal for you to,
So let's now break this down. LGBT individuals suffer from disproportionate rates of mental illness, but it's not because they are trans or because they are gay. That's not the reason why they're suffering from mental illness. It's just like, this is the equivalent, by the way, of me saying, being a white man is a mental illness. It's degenerate because white men in America disproportionately commit suicide. That would be delusional. That's not true. Just if a group of people have disproportionate rates of mental illness doesn't mean that those types of people are therefore the mental illness. Like, that obviously doesn't make sense. So the reason you see higher rates of mental illness in regards to LGBT individuals is because, one, you see higher rates of gender dysphoria for trans people. Now, you just said for most people they should go and treat it. You're right. The way in which you treat the mental illness called gender dysphoria is transitioning, socially and then later medically. That is the treatment for LGBT or for gender dysphoria, excuse me, because being trans in and of itself is not a mental illness. Not at all. If you have an internal perception and you perceive yourself in a way that aligns more with what we would culturally recognize as being feminine, that's not a mental illness. The mental illness is the gender dysphoria, which is the significant discomfort you feel over the fact that your internal perception doesn't align with your biology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that, like, you keep calling me a schizophrenic. If I was a schizophrenic, you would tell me to, I don't know what the medications or whatever the therapy is they go through, but you don't go in there. I don't go to the doctor and have the doctor tell me, yes, the chair is talking to you.
You're right.
It's the same thing with the trans kid. You don't go in there and tell the kid, yes, you are a girl.
No, you're wrong.
I'm going to transition you into a
girl. You're
girl.
fatally incorrect, actually. Because if you have somebody with schizophrenia like you, and then they go into the doctor, and then they say, yeah, the chair is talking to you, what does that result in? More harm. It results in more harm to the well-being of you. What do we see with trans kids or trans people in general who have their gender validated and then are given treatment for gender dysphoria? Less harm. We see their mental health improve.
Well, why is the suicide epidemic happening now when the trans community and all of them have so much acceptance?
The reason
why is it still an issue?
Because although you see it from like a media perspective of like, look, they're always talking about trans stuff. We are in the beginning stages of normalizing trans people. in reality, day-to-day life for trans people is difficult. They face way higher rates of discrimination. They're disproportionately victimized when it comes to violent crime. They're disproportionately kicked out of their homes. They are disproportionately victimized repeatedly in all types of facets among society. So that is why you see a higher suicide rate amongst LGBT individuals. However, you see a lower suicide rate amongst LGBT people once their gender dysphoria has been treated and addressed. So do you see the difference between validating a schizophrenic versus validating a trans person?
I mean, I guess I see your point, but there's a lot of different factors. Like, hashtag on Twitter a couple months ago, hashtag detransition Tuesday or something like that was trending, but then Twitter goes and bans it because they don't want people to see that.
Well,
People that
I don't.
thought they
That's
wanted to
hold on.
transition
You're
and then
talking about something
transition
that's
back.
irrelevant. That doesn't matter right now. I don't care about Twitter censoring a fucking hashtag. I'm asking you principally, generally speaking, if you understand why giving in or validating a schizophrenic's actual delusions is not the same as validating someone's very real gender identity.
Well, it's a very tough subject because I don't know how, if it was mental or if it was chemical, with a lot of chemicals that are in our food and water and even in the air
That
contributes
doesn't
to
make
that.
sense. Trans people have existed throughout history, far before chemicals were in our food and water. So,
And
do you
then the
recognize?
Jews
Hold
in
on, stop
Hollywood
with
in
the
the
Jews. Shut the fuck
1940s
up. I'm
were the
gonna hang
first
up
one
on
to
your
put
ass,
it in
or
the
at least
media.
mute you. Okay? I'm gonna go full Jew and silence you. Okay? Shut up. I'm asking you specifically if you can recognize the difference between validating someone with schizophrenia and validating someone who is trans.
Or we're just going to have to agree to disagree because I don't validate that as normal.
We're not going to agree to disagree. You came on here and we're very confident to call this degeneracy. And now that we're getting down into the nitty gritty, you're backtracking and saying, well, it's a really tough subject. You know, I need to
No,
do more
I'm
research.
saying it's degenerate, and I'm not going to
It's not.
validate it
You
as
said
normal.
it's degenerate because of the mental illness. I'm now explaining the way in which you treat that mental illness and the fact that trans people, after going through treatment, don't have mental illness, but you're still saying it's degenerate.
I think if you just decide, adults can do whatever they want. If an adult decides they want to transition to a woman from a man, then that's whatever they want to do. But I think that is degeneracy, and that's not normal, and they've been told by the media and the television that it's normal.
Do you think like something not normal is what classifies it as degeneracy?
No, I'm talking about how the human race is in existence today. Do you think if every 330 million people in the United States were all trans or homosexual, like what would happen?
Do you think if
We
everybody
wouldn't have any more kids.
Do you think if everybody in society was like 3 years old, that society would not function properly?
Probably not.
So is it immoral to be 3 years old?
No, but that's
is it
beside the
degenerate
fact.
to be 3 years old?
Dude, you have to admit, if everyone was gay and trans, there would be no more humans.
If everybody was 3 years old, society wouldn't function, and there would arguably be no more humans, at least for a while.
Well, there's a chance that they would.
Is being 3 years old degenerate? Just if you say,
no.
If 100% of society was this thing, then it wouldn't function. Who gives a fuck? 100% of society is never going to be trans or gay. That's delusional. If 100% of society was 3 years old, society...
functions.
Hold on. I'm going to say it again. If 100% of society was 3 years old, then society would not function correctly. Is it degenerate to be 3 years old?
No, you keep putting the term degenerate on all these other things that clearly aren't degenerate.
Because you're labeling things like this because it would collapse the human race or whatever as being degenerate. And I'm giving you an example of something else that if everybody was that thing, it too would collapse society. And you're not willing to say that that's degenerate. It seems like you just kind of have like an uncomfortable feeling
because everybody being
about
3 years old. Everybody being 3 years old isn't a mental illness.
It's not a mental illness either to be trans. It's only a mental illness to have gender dysphoria.
Was it not in the record as a mental illness up until a couple of years ago when they got it removed?
You
Gender
realize,
dysphoria or
wait, hold
gender
on.
dysmorphia.
If it was previously labeled a mental illness and it no longer is, then that supports my point. You realize that, right? Because the way in which science, academia, and medical research and literature works is that it's self-correcting. So if we previously labeled something a mental illness and it's now no longer labeled a mental illness, all that demonstrates is that society has progressed, research has gotten better, medical literature has improved, and we now recognize something as not being a mental illness that we previously thought was. That supports my point.
Well, I don't think 100% of the scientific community would agree on that. It's just the ones that own the publishing and whatnot and own the peer reviews and whatever they do to.
So now you're backing back into the fucking conspiracy. You always have like this out, which is the problem. So like now that you're in a corner where you've been presented with clear-cut information that completely obliterates all the stupid shit you said, now all of a sudden you're in this place where, well, no, because the Jews just wrote it. They control the literature. You always have some dumb fuck excuse to fall back on.
It's not an excuse.
It
That's
is
what science
absolutely an
is
excuse.
questioning and hypothesis and theory and experimentation and different results. It's not 100% of
It
the scientific
doesn't
community would
have
agree
to
with you.
be 100%. 100% of scientists don't agree on anything.
That is true.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how you can say then that it's degenerate because it's a mental illness, but then we've explained how it's not actually mental illness to just be trans. But that doesn't mean it's not degenerate because it's abnormal. But you're like all over the place. It sounds like you're kind of just grasping at straws to justify why you have an uncomfortable like tummy ache about trans people.
Uh, nah, dude. I mean, I honestly have only run into a handful of trans people, but probably less than that. But you know, when the parents take their kids to the drag shows and the signs on the wall say it doesn't lick itself, like it's just degeneracy, man.
That
It's
wasn't
just
even a
grooming
trans
the
thing. Hold
children.
on, that wasn't even a trans thing. That was
Isn't drag trans?
no. Drag is somebody
Men?
drag is men dressing up as women as a
Yeah,
career
that's
as hold on,
trans.
no it's not. As a career option. They still identify as men. Trans people have an internal perception that aligns more with what we culturally recognize as feminine, if we're talking about trans women, and so they also take steps to present themselves accordingly. Huge difference there. Because it comes back to the self-perception and self-identification. That's what holds the weight.
Right, but why are they trying to introduce that to children at such a young age? Like, if you have kids, you don't have
Introduce
to say
what?
if you have kids or not, but if you have kids, do you want them talking with someone else about sex and about their sex life and their reproductive organs, or do
Are
you
you
want that
talking about
information to
talking
come from you?
are you talking about kids talking about or learning about trans issues or drag issues? Because these are two separate things.
Any sexual debate or topic
You realize that
in school
kids
and
having
drag and anywhere, Hollywood.
no, I don't think that kids are learning, hey everybody, this is what happens when you get your penis operated on. What they're being taught is trans people exist, gay people exist, they are real, and they might be different from what you're used to. However, they are just as much people as you and everybody else. Are you against kids learning that?
I'm not against hatred, or I don't hate anybody, and I don't think anyone should hate everyone because you have to love everyone equal. But I don't think that this type of information should be targeted at the children, but that's,
You don't think kids should
it's
learn
what
like
they say.
facts of the world, facts of reality?
I think they should learn facts, but I don't think it should be presented to them as normal and them to be groomed into their adulthood as this stuff being normal.
You need to stop using the word groom. That's not what grooming means in any sense of the word. I think the word you're using or you're looking for is indoctrinating.
Well, maybe either word could work, but it's not my own choice of the terminology. That's what came out of the drag queens and the other guys' mouths.
No,
They say we're
grooming is
grooming the next generation.
grooming by definition is when you are raising a child to be more accepting of sexual acts against them, perpetrated against them, so that you can then take advantage of that child sexually.
That sounds about right to me.
Are gay people teaching kids that it's okay to be gay so that they can later molest them? Is that happening?
100%.
No, it's not. Can you give me a single study, please, or a single article on that, please? Source, bro.
John Money, was it?
That's not. Okay. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah.
So you're actually just stupid then. I get it. It's fair. Listen,
What did John Money do?
John Money has nothing to do with public schools or teachers teaching kids that gay people exist so that they can later sexually abuse them. That is like an entirely separate point. This is like me asking you for an example and you saying, "Have you heard about Have you heard about what happened
Maybe
with
physical.
Hey, where's the evidence? Have you heard about what happened with NASCAR?" It's like completely unrelated. So, to summarize, degeneracy means you have a mental illness and it's not fucking normal. However, there are plenty of things in society that we already accept that are not normal. For example, your beliefs are completely not normal, yet I don't think you would be willing to call yourself a degenerate, even though I would probably agree that you were one. And then you say, well, no, it's about mental illness. You see, it's mental illness. Okay, well, trans people, being trans is not a mental illness any more than being a veteran or being a white man is a mental illness. It's simply that you are prone to additional mental illnesses because of discrimination in society or gender dysphoria. And again, the way in which you treat that mental illness is going through treatment. You transition socially and then medically later on. Kids are not having their genitals mutilated. Kids are not being operated on. What's happening here is you have children that have very real mental illnesses called gender dysphoria, and you have to go about treating that, or else that kid has a way higher likelihood of killing themselves. Do you understand?
Yeah, I think they're going to have a high suicide rate no matter what.
Well, then why
because
is it
they have a mental disorder?
Why is it the trans people's suicide rates like significantly drops after they've gone through some kind of gender affirming care and have experienced acceptance from even one single parent? Why is it that it drops by like 70%?
I don't know.
Okay. That seems to be your best answer for most things is I don't know. You didn't know the history of why Jews had control of Hollywood. You didn't know the history of anything to do with LGBT. You're saying things are degenerate, but then when I give you examples of other things that fit the exact same definition, you say that's not degenerate. Honestly, if we're going to classify degeneracy based on mental illness, you are the biggest fucking degenerate in this entire fucking world because you're obviously mentally unwell. You're clearly insane. And listen, I understand that when you grow up in a world where like you don't have a dad, it's a lot easier to just like turn to internet forums and be radicalized. But rethink what you're saying here, man. This should hopefully be eye-opening for you that you have no grounding for any of your positions. You don't even understand the basics.
If I don't know this history and the data on every single thing, that doesn't mean I don't know anything.
It's not every single thing. I'm not asking you to do it for every single thing. I'm asking you to literally give a fact for even one fucking thing. You haven't been able to substantiate anything you've said. Listen.
Dude, well, I came in here to have a discussion.
Yeah. I'm glad you came in here because I was able to show everybody watching right now how fucking stupid you are. So listen, I know it's tough out there. Hang in there, okay? Hopefully you'll get adopted one day.
Let's get into the Holocaust.
I know the orphanage.
If I don't know about the history.
No, I know. Listen, I know it's tough in the orphanage. Hang on, okay? One day maybe you'll get a mommy and daddy. Maybe you'll get a mommy and daddy that'll adopt you. You know, hopefully like an interracial couple will adopt you, and I don't know. Maybe they'll have like
a Kalergi plan.
Maybe they'll have like a trans kid too. That'd be really cool. So
breed
either
the
way,
whites
dude,
out of
I would like
existence.
to have a good rest of your day, and please, for the sake of everybody, stop being a degenerate.
Self-hating.
Okay. Well, there goes that piece of shit. I'm not going to waste my time arguing the Holocaust. Guys, George Soros would be proud if you donated right now, okay? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you get notified when I drop a new video.